Hi, this is Brad Linder with Liliputing, and this is a Dell Chromebook 11, which is an 11.6-inch notebook that runs Google's Chrome operating system. And this particular model has a Core i3 Haswell processor, which makes it one of the most powerful Chromebooks around. So it sells for about $379. That makes it a little bit expensive for a Chromebook. Dell does offer a version with a Celeron processor that has a lower price tag, but for $379, it's actually a pretty good deal given the amount of performance that you get. Now, I tend to find that Celeron-based models feel plenty fast, but when you run benchmarks, you can definitely see the difference in performance. So if you really need a higher performing machine, this or Acer's C720 with a Core i3 processor will make a difference. This costs a little bit more than the Acer, just about 20 or 30 bucks more than the Acer, but in my opinion, it has a nicer looking case, a little bit sturdier, and it's really designed with the education market in mind. So let's take a quick look at what you have here. First of all, you might notice this little glowing guy. I just wanted to leave that plugged in for a minute. The power cable does glow when it's plugged in. It's kind of a nice looking little power adapter. We've got HDMI, two USB 3.0 super speed ports, a headset jack, full-size SD card slot, and a lock port here, and that's about it. On the bottom, there are a bunch of screws holding everything together, and stereo speakers and ventilation. You can remove these screws, you can take the back panel off, and you can find a picture of what it looks like with the back off at liliputing.com. There's not really much other than the wireless card that's going to be easy to upgrade, though, because the storage and the memory are attached to the motherboard. This model has 4 gigs of RAM, which is more, again, than you get with most Chromebooks, and 16 gigabytes of storage, which is about par for the course. If you need extra storage space, you'll want to put in an SD card. It's a nice looking device, feels kind of sturdy. It's got plastic, but again, sort of a nice little heft to it. Weighs around 2.9 pounds, I believe. Now you might have noticed that large fan vent on the bottom. It is not a fanless system, and in fact the fan can get a little bit noisy at times. I've noticed that it kicks in a little bit more than you might like, but it's really not too bad for the most part. Like most Chromebooks, it's really designed to run web apps, and that's why you don't need a ton of local storage space, but it does a great job of handling multiple apps and multiple web apps all running simultaneously. You can see that when you've got a good internet connection, it loads things pretty quickly. You can do side by side. It has a 1366 by 768 pixel display, which looks pretty good when viewed directly ahead. You can see that the colors sort of start to look a little bit funny in pictures from certain angles, though. And the screen, this is hard to get across on this video, but the screen doesn't get quite as bright, I think, as some Chromebook displays, but it's perfectly serviceable. So you can see we've got multiple apps or multiple websites running. We can run applications. We can open Netflix, open YouTube, and everything works pretty quickly. Now that we've got YouTube open, let's go ahead and do a video. In fact, let's even do 2 videos. Alright, so we've got 2 videos playing side by side. Everything looks pretty good. Let's crank them up to 720p. And you can see that it's performing pretty well there. So in terms of performance, again, I ran a series of web-based benchmarks, SunSpider, Peacekeeper, Google Octane, and it's one of the fastest Chromebooks on the market. Now again, Chrome is designed to be relatively zippy. You might have noticed how quickly it came to the desktop when I lifted the screen. So even with a less powerful processor, I don't think you're going to notice a huge difference. But if you want sort of the bleeding edge for $379, it's nice to be able to have it. Now, if you want to be able to do a little bit more with a Chromebook, you don't want to just have to run web apps, it is possible to install other operating systems. And the easiest way to do that is with a script called Crouton, which lets you shouldn't type and talk at the same time, lets you install Ubuntu or Debian or other operating systems, Linux-based operating systems, running side by side with Chrome. So it's actually using the same kernel, and you don't have to worry about the Wi-Fi and touchpad driver and all the other things working. So let's go ahead, although actually the touchpad doesn't work quite as well as I'd like. It doesn't support tapping. So you have to click, but now we've got the Firefox web browser running on a Chromebook. I can also run a few other applications. Say you wanted a word processor that can work without an internet connection. I installed AbiWord. This is a, This is a word processor. You could also install OpenOffice or LibreOffice if you really wanted to. Now they're going to take up more space, so if you were going to do that sort of thing, you might want to make sure that you've got a large SD card for storage, or that you're not using a lot of local storage for other things. Also, likewise, we've got the GIMP image editing application here, and I find this really comes in handy when I'm using this as a blogging machine, because it allows me to edit It allows me to edit images without having to upload them to the web first. So there's a built-in image editing application in Chrome OS that I can use to crop images, but if I want to resize them without having to upload them to the internet and then resize them, which uses more bandwidth than is really necessary, using something like GIMP to open and edit images comes in handy. So I can go ahead and open an image here. I can crop, scale, etc. So Crouton is something that you might have seen me use before in other videos with Chromebooks. It's something that's available on almost every Chrome OS system, whether desktop or notebook, and I think it can make this device a little bit more than just a web browser on steroids. Now, the fact that it is basically a web browser does really open up some interesting possibilities, though. The fact that there's not a lot of local storage, and that means that you can store your music collection on the web using something like Google Play Music, or you can stream from Amazon, Spotify, Google Play, other sorts of online music services. Same goes for video. If you use it really more for Netflix or for YouTube than for playing your own local video collection, you don't need a lot of storage. And then when you're storing your documents online, whether it's through Microsoft's Office suite of applications or Google Docs or something else, basically anytime you want to pick up where you left off using a different machine, your stuff is all online. So if you lose this, if you break it, or you just want to go to your office, you just log into Google Chrome web browser using your Google ID, and all of your data is there. So Chromebooks aren't necessarily the best machines for everybody, but if you're looking for one of the best Chromebooks in terms of performance, I think the Dell is a nice option. This is Brad Linder with Liliputing, and a video review of the Dell Chromebook 11 with a Core i3 processor. I forgot to mention, gets about 9 or 10 hours of battery life. Dell promises 10, in my use 9 seems a little bit more realistic, but that's still pretty good. It's a full work day, and again, you can put it to sleep and wake it up almost instantly, so when you're not using it, do that, and you get a little bit more life out of it as well. So that's the Dell Chromebook 11 with Intel Core i3 processor. You can find more details at liliputing.com.